Hey, this is Michael Butler, Artistic Director of Center Rep, and I'm here with 3 questions for Hunter Foster, the director of Million Dollar Quartet, our opening show of this 50th anniversary season. So, 3 questions, Hunter.
Okay.
You are the director of the show, you're a director, you're a writer, you're an actor, and you have a unique relationship to this show and this project. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was.
Do you know what I mean by that question?
I think I know what you mean by that question. I was in the original Broadway company.
Right. Yeah, that's where I'm going.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. So I was. Low power mode.
I think we can still do it.
I was in the original Broadway cast.
Right.
Back in 2010, and so I was sort of there in the developmental process of the whole piece, and was sort of worked with the. Especially my character, I worked a lot with the director as far as like developing the character from.
You played Sam Phillips.
I played Sam Phillips. Yeah.
The legend.
The legend.
And it's a little unusual to move from acting in a show to directing a production. I mean, you have a unique production you've directed of it. How did did that sort of come? Did you generate that idea? Like, I want to direct this show and bring something new to it.
Well, it's interesting. I actually have been transitioning out of acting into directing mostly, and this has been and this has been sort of has become something of a, I call it, it's almost like my that car that you have in the garage that's on center blocks that you keep tinkering with, and then you go off and you do other things, and you come back home, and then you're like, oh, there's that car, I could tinker with it some more. So what's been interesting is to sort of every time we do the show, we sort of change a little bit here, add a little bit there, try something new. So every time we've done it has been completely different, which has been really interesting.
That's cool. Yeah. That's great. I love shows about musicians and the making of music. A real soft spot for me. Do you have that kind of thing going on with this show? I mean, you're with it a lot, and these great musicians, and Sam Phillips is such an amazing producer.
Yeah. I sort of, as probably any sort of young guy was growing up, one that had that sort of rock and roll aspirations, dreams, and it's probably what got me into theater to begin with, is just because I wanted to sort of, I think the rock and roll shows like Jesus Christ Superstar and Chess and Vita and Hair, those are the things that sort of got me into theater, because that's the sort of stuff I could relate to. So I was really more into rock and roll than I was into theater. So I've always been, and I sort of grew up with this music because I used to do Elvis impersonations when I used to sing telegrams, and when I was in my 20s, and I used to I had a whole Elvis get up, and so I would do Elvis singing telegrams.
I'm so tempted to ask him to do it.
No, you don't want me to do it. And then my grandfather was a big Johnny Cash fan, so every time we went to his house, Johnny Cash was always on.
Yeah.
So I just grew up with Johnny Cash. I grew up with Elvis. And then I know less. I mean, through this process, I've learned more about Carl Perkins, obviously, and his influence. Especially on the Beatles, which is one of the biggest influences of the Beatles, Carl Perkins, and then of course Jerry Lee, which is
the Beatles loved Carl Perkins.
They loved him, especially George Harrison.
Yeah. It's funny because you've done a lot of Broadway shows, musicals, but you haven't done a lot of rock and roll kind of Broadway shows. Have you done more sort of traditional Broadway musicals?
So my first Broadway show was Grease, so I guess that's sort of rock and roll. And I did Footloose, which is pop.
Yeah, pop rock.
Pop rock, yeah. I never did Rent or any of those other sort of, real. Yeah. But now I look back on Rent, and it's sort of, Rent to me feels like musical theater. It doesn't feel like, at the time it felt like it was sort of pop, but it's now it feels like musical theater.
What's the other thing I love about the show is, it's like all these great tunes, but I actually think it's the story of these guys and where they are in their career and the tensions between them. Yeah. I think it actually is a really good book, and says a lot about these characters and the life of a musician and trying to make it big and the tensions that come with that.
Well, it's with the music is going to be what it is. We have great musicians, and the music's going to be great, and people are going to dance to it, and people are going to get involved. What our challenge is always trying to make sure that there's a real story, and there's real drama here, and so the thing that I've always pushed for the show is to sort of really sort of enhance the drama, and I've pushed that because if we're storytellers in everything that we do, And this is a story just like any other story that we're telling. And I always want that to be the main focus. The music is going to take care of itself, and it's our job to sort of bring this story and make that the sort of focal point of the evening.
And these guys are awesome musicians.
Oh, they're amazing.
Jedi's, every one of them.
Yeah.
Well, that actually turned into more of a conversation than the 3 questions, but it was a good conversation, wasn't it? Thank you, Hunter Foster.
Okay.
We can't wait for
Great.
$1 Million Quartet. Bye.